Hey everyone, it's Lisa here from the podcast, Her Healing Hour. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it is the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. Number one, it's free. Number two, there are creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your mobile phone or your computer. Number three, Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and many more. Number four, you can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. Number five, it's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. Download the Anchor free app right now or go to anchor.fm to get started. Bye. Hello. Welcome back, guys, to Her Healing Hour. I'm Lisa, also known as the AlkaliYogi, and this is the third installment of my new podcast. New episodes will be released here every Monday, so I look forward to connecting with you. Today, we are talking about sleep and making it the priority. But first, let me just say, if this is your first time here, I want to welcome you. And I want to tell you a little bit about who I am. I am a certified holistic lifestyle coach with the CHEK Institute, as well as a yoga teacher with over 500 hours of yoga teacher training. More importantly, I am human and have actively been pursuing a holistic lifestyle for over 15 years. And now, because of that, I feel I have some things to share. So this is a sharing space. Eventually, what I'm hoping is that you will join me in this space and also provide feedback, input, amendments, deletions, and the like. Also, I should say that I am the co-host of 3 upcoming yoga wellness retreats that we'll be doing at Usha Village, home of Dr. Sebi in Honduras. Please stay posted to all of my social media for further information as to when the dates will be. And you can find us on Instagram at Alkaline Yoga Retreats. That's Alkaline Yoga Retreats, exactly as it sounds. AlkalineYogaRetreats. Or you can find my personal page at AlkaliYogi. That's spelled AlkaliYogi. I look forward to speaking with all of you soon. So this podcast is a space for people who want to remember what they have forgotten. Nothing I tell you here will be new, at least not for your subconscious or your superconscious, and certainly not for your DNA, which are all well-informed and imbued with the wisdom of the one source, the creator, the universe, Mother Earth, Mother Nature, whatever you wish to call him or her. And always, I invite you to look deeper into the information that I'm sharing here because I'm on the same journey as you. I'm not at the destination. I'm merely on a path, and I invite you to walk alongside me so that we may share in this journey together. So this is our third installment of the podcast, and today we're touching on the third foundational principle. There are 6 foundational principles as taught by the CHEK Institute and Paul Chek. And today's principle is sleep. Before I get into sleep, I just want to also define for a moment what a principle is. I found a quote from the Dr. A.R. Bernard, and he defined a principle as a broad and basic truth. So that's what we're dealing with, 6 broad and basic truths. And to narrow it down even further, I will say that 3 of those principles / broad and basic truths are yin in their imprint and their energies, and the other 3 are yang. And as I mentioned to you before, yin and yang work together. It's not about one or the other. You're constantly trying to achieve balance by having enough yin and enough yang at all times. And the universe is doing exactly the same thing. Now, let's list those principles again, shall we? So, we have spoken about hydration, we talked about nutrition, and today we will speak about sleep. Yin, again, tends to be biased towards dark, lunar energy, more night, feminine-like energy. It's more passive, more left brain, and it tends to cultivate energy, which makes sense, right? Nutrition, hydration, and sleep are all ways to cultivate energy in this vessel known as the human body. Whilst Yang tends to be biased towards light and solar, it's more masculine, I would say, left brain, right body, and it tends to expend energy. And those three principles, which we'll get into beginning next week, are movement, breath, and thoughts. Something to think about. All three of those principles do actually expend energy when you think about it. Isn't that something? All right, so sleep, like I said, is the last of the Yin principles that we will dive into today. And the reason why we want to speak about sleep is because, well, frankly, without sleep, you're basically on the fast track to getting ill. No doubt about it, my friends. Our minds and our bodies are constantly vacillating between yin and yang to achieve balance. And sleep is a yin principle, right? So if you're moving too much or you've got too many thoughts going on, you've got way too much yang in your body, and you're probably feeling it. You're probably feeling uncomfortable, unsettled, not rested, possibly fatigued, possibly irritable. So it is important to achieve balance here, like everywhere else. And if you just look and observe at Mother Nature, if you just look and observe at this planet that we're currently occupying, you'll see that nature actually works the same way. It's constantly trying to achieve balance. Learning to tune yourself, not unlike an instrument, when you're not in balance is not only important, but I would argue that it is necessary and even critical now more than ever. It's my belief that the human race, we're pretty much struggling with sleep, I think, more than ever. In my life alone, some of the people nearest and dearest to me have been saying just that now for years. And let me tell you, it's not just about sleep quantity, but it's also about sleep quality. Now, this is important because if we're not sleeping, we are not healing. We are simply managing. Sleep is your best defense against illness because sleep is the repair and restore cycle for your mind, body, and spirit. That's right. Sleep is more than just your body's reset. It's a full entity recalibration. If you struggle or have struggled with depression and anxiety, which, by the way, are both challenges I've had to cope and manage in my life, then I urge you to get more sleep and get it when it counts, not during all hours of the day and night. Guess what? Not all sleep is created equal. Sleep is the most economical and efficient way to restore your mental health if you're labored with trials of, again, depression and anxiety, but you have to be sleeping at the right time. So when does your sleep actually count, you might ask? Well, glad you asked. It is between the hours of 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. You are intrinsically connected to the sun and moon cycles. We are not born night owls. No. You developed into that over time. But if you want to restore your health, you must reconnect with Mother Earth's circadian rhythm and relearn to wake and sleep on her time. If you choose to sleep outside this window, then you're forfeiting a lot of things and you're forfeiting them forever. Let me give you a little sneak peek into what it is that you're giving up. By not sleeping during that specific window, you are forfeiting 4 hours of physical repair that happen between the hours of 10 p.m. and 2 a.m. And in addition to that, you could also be sacrificing 4 hours of psychological repair that happens between the hours of 2 a.m. and 6 a.m. And guess what? Those repairs only happen during that time. That's right. If you snooze, you lose. If you go to bed at midnight, then your repair cycle starts from midnight till 2 for the physical, and then it goes into psychological from 2 till 6. But what you've given up are 2 hours of healing, physical healing between the hours of 10 and 2 that you'll never, ever, ever get back. And so when you add that up over time and over decades, that's hundreds of hours of repair work, restoration work that you're missing out on. Imagine the impact that has on your body. Let's talk about those impacts. What are the costs associated with not sleeping well and at the right time? Sleep deprivation leads not only to cognitive and motor disruptions, they also lead to mood swings, anxiety, weight gain, inflammation in the body, reduced organ capacity, detoxification, yada, yada, yada. Are you picking up what I'm putting down? This was basically your fast track to your expiration date. It will accelerate your expiration date. And yet, this simple method of restoring health has become more and more elusive as we burden our bodies, minds, and environment with toxins. So it's become harder for us to do what we were designed to do, which is sleep and repair. Part of that has to do with the fact that our minds are so busy, they completely dominate our mental faculties to the point where we struggle to turn off our minds and shift into a gear where we can be quiet, still. I would say that of the 6 foundational principles, sleep is arguably one of the most difficult. For me, anyways. I'm very cerebral and I tend to overthink and I overanalyze virtually everything. So as a result, I'm having to sleep train myself now and have been for the better part of a year to restore something that should come with ease. I'll share more about my bedtime routine a little bit later. But for now, I want to get back to why we're all doomed if we cannot do what we should be able to do. Sleep and sleep well at night. So, as I mentioned to you, people are struggling with sleep, and in general, people are sleeping fewer hours per night. Some of the contributing factors to this obviously have to do with our devices and our addiction to social media. Its blue light will keep you up, unfortunately. Also things like work and work emails, and maybe the expectation that we should be accessible even outside of those work hours, right? Is keeping us on our devices longer than we should, and is probably making us sleep less. Overeating at night, even training at night, lack of movement, not enough movement maybe during the day, that could also be a contributing factor, right? If you've not exerted enough energy. And then inflammation and toxicity from food or from household products, beauty products in the body. And by the way, anything you put on the body goes in the body. So if you're using shampoos, body washes, deodorants that are highly toxic, chances are this is also contributing to reduced quality of sleep. Because like the foundational principles and everything else in the universe, everything is connected. Everything is connected. So whatever you put on, in, around, you, your essence, your aura, your body, that will affect everything. Just something to think about. Now, I also want to get into briefly talking about the other 5 principles and how they will impact your sleep. At the end of the day, the principles themselves, all 6 of them, are really just as strong as the weakest link. To illustrate this point, I'm going to give you an example. For instance, let's say you are well hydrated. Let's say you're practicing good diaphragmatic breath. Let's imagine you're also practicing good movement at the right time, a good balance of yin and yang movement. Let's say you also have an optimistic outlook in life and that you eat food that is nutritionally dead, that is modified, hybridized, and sprayed with chemicals. So here you are, you've got all these other foundational principles nailed to a T. You're performing beautifully, but you're eating rubbish. well, that's also going to impact your sleep, because there just simply is no separation between the mind, body, and the soul. Just like there's no separation between me, you, and all of us and Mother Earth. So now, because of your nutrition, or we'll say lack thereof, your body's central nervous system is under attack because of all this toxicity. So rather than it be able to sleep and rest and go from digestion to rest, you've now bombarded your body with toxic chemicals which cannot, and do not integrate into the human body. So guess what your body does to compensate? It goes into overtime trying to expel the waste. This is what it's doing when it's meant to be putting you in rest and digest mode. So your body's energies are being rerouted and used and funneled into waste removal over rest and repair. You're essentially robbing your body of critical time and energy needed to restore itself because you've removed your best defense off of the court and onto the bench. Making sense? Your body is designed to repair and rejuvenate itself, but if you're dumping a toxic wasteland into your system, know that you are busying your cells with the task of ejecting what should have never been put in the body to begin with, rendering sleep a labor rather than something that comes naturally or habitually. So what I'm getting at, once again, is that there is no separation between the foundational principles. You don't get to pick and choose. In order to restore your health and wellness, you must work through all of these factors and all of these principles and give them each as much of your time and attention as possible. That's how you achieve balance. Remember, you have 3 yin foundational principles and 3 yang. And you need both to be in balance, in harmony, and to be healthy. So to sleep better, you will have to foster your hydration, your nutrition, your thoughts, your breath, and your movement. In addition to that, you might also consider cultivating some sleep hygiene habits. And again, I do want to share mine with you. So what the heck? Let's do that now. Maybe take out a pen and paper if you fancy. So to get the most out of the 8 hours I wish and I need every night, what I have started to do is, for the better part of a year, is I avoid consuming foods in the evening. Some might call this intermittent fasting. That's fine, neither here nor there. It's just a label. I've just noticed that I sleep better when I go to sleep on an empty stomach. And I believe that you might too. By avoiding foods after 3 p.m., I allow my body enough time to convert my breakfast and lunch into nutrition and fuel that I can utilize during the day when it's needed most. So that at night, rather than fueling my body, I allow the body to prepare itself for rest. So how do I do that exactly? Well, I make it a habit to not check emails after 5. And I tend to not look at my mobile past 8:39. So sometimes it doesn't happen exactly that way because after all, we're human and there's this thing called life. But when I can help it, I choose to stop looking at my phone altogether around 8:30. I also like to take a nice hot shower, although a soothing bath is a formidable option for those of you that prefer to bath. And then by 2:30, by 8:30, I'm also avoiding all beverages at this point, so that this ensures that I don't have to wake up in the middle of the night to use the loo. Because if you're like me, waking up to go to the loo in the middle of the night, you end up losing hours of sleep because it takes me personally more than an hour to then fall back asleep, if I even ever get back to sleep. So I just remove that obstacle altogether by just not consuming any beverages at T-minus 2 hours before bedtime. Now in the evening, if I've not taken a yin class and most nights I will. But if I've not had the time, I might switch out and then go for a nice long walk. Even in the wintertime, I'll bundle up. It's great to breathe in that cold, crisp air. I find that it helps to relax me. I also know that there's more chi, more life force in cold air. So I love taking deep, long breaths. And it doesn't have to be a long walk, 30 minutes at most, when it's, when the sun has gone down. Also helps your body to acclimate to the fact that it's nighttime outside, right? So when you're outside and it sees that it's night as opposed to being indoors with all this artificial lighting, then your body is less likely to be confused about whether or not it's time to go into rest and repair mode. And essentially, I also like to, do some fancy lady things like use essential oils. Not saying that the gentlemen don't do this as well, but I know us ladies are partial to essential oils. I always look for high quality organic essential oils such as lavender that I can apply to my inner wrists, my temples, my heart or heart chakra, my upper lip. I find that breathing that in helps. I also like to burn candles with essential oils when I can find them on sale. And, burning a little bit of sage, Palo Santo throughout the space, I have found has been very soothing. So these, again, are just nighttime rituals that I like to participate in and practice daily to let my body know, okay, it's getting time to go to bed. Then I make my way around to the bed, circa 9:30-10, leaving my mobile in a whole other room. That's right, mobile does not come with me. Guess what? You can hear the alarm in another room should you need an alarm. And I highly encourage you to wake without one. But if you absolutely need to use an alarm, then still feel comfortable enough to leave your phone in another room. Because truthfully, the best thing that your body could learn to do is to go to sleep and rise with the sun. The natural moon and sun cycles. That's the best thing that you could do for your body, is to get off of devices and apps and radioactive or, just objects that are radiating in general. So now I'm in bed. It's 9:30-10. I'll crack open a book. I'll get to some reading. And, there will be times where I'll be reading for over an hour. And so at that point, what I'll try to do is I'll maybe throw my legs up against the wall. So I'll have my butt cheeks, my hamstrings, the backs of my knees and my heels all up against the wall. I'm creating a nice 90-degree angle with my torso, which is laying flat on the floor or the bed. It just depends. Because that is also a way to sort of signal to the body that it's time for it to just calm and stay still. Any fellow yogis that are listening to today's podcast, the child's pose is also a great pose to try before going to bed. Any inversion, really. So any inversion will help you to come out of your head and into the body, and will overall help to just calm the body and mind together. So just some things to consider. And last and certainly not least, I like to play around with binaural beats. I'll normally have binaural beats playing in the living room on my laptop, even whilst I'm watching telly for the last hour and a half, just to kind of, communicate to my DNA what I wanted to communicate, which is sleep is coming, right? So I'm choosy about the binaural beats. I'm getting binaural beats that help with sleep specifically. And I'll keep the binaural beats on all night, actually. So they'll stay on my laptop playing for 8 or 9 hours, even whilst I'm sleeping, because I believe personally that it's resonating a nice gentle frequency into the ether, creating, again, a more harmonious, more peaceful, more restful sleep throughout my home. And my body is naturally in tune with that, right? Because there's no separation. And that also helps my mind to shift. So changing the energy changes my body, which changes my mind. And so now my central nervous system does what it's supposed to do, which is shift into the parasympathetic, also known as the rest and digest. So these are all things that I have to do now as an adult, because I have allowed my mind to take over. And it's constantly on yang and high functioning and constantly has a lot of energy and fire in my head. And so in order to help me come back into my body, I've had to adopt this sleep hygiene, which for most children is not necessary, right? Because most kids can still sleep very peacefully and soundly without any sleep hygiene, so to speak. But this is where I am today. This is part of my journey, and I own it and I recognize it. But I also want to add that just because these things are helpful for me, it doesn't mean that they're going to be helpful for you. Remember, you're unique. So what works for one person doesn't necessarily work for another. If we went with that model, then this would be an allopathic podcast. It is not. It's holistic. Because there's no linear approach here. There's not a one size fits all. The point I'm trying to make is that you really have to have a willingness at the end of the day and a desire to get to know yourself better. You want to become intimate with yourself. You must want to. You have to be curious about yourself. If you're not, well then who else would be fascinated and curious about you? You know? So you really have to create and cultivate that desire to want to spend time with yourself and getting to know yourself. To live a holistic life, it means a hands-on approach. You can't expect your GP or your healthcare advisor or a holistic practitioner or wellness practitioner to know you better than you. You need to know yourself better than you because you will spend more time with yourself than anyone else. Our lives and our bodies are nothing short of a miracle. Nothing short of a miracle. So why are we not actively participating in this experience of this miracle? If you instead choose to bury your head in the sand and look to pharma for a solution, just remember what I said to you. They formulate their drugs via a computer model, a linear approach. But I think you should spare yourself from the chemical pollution and instead reassess and modify your behaviors or patterns. Now, sleeping pill, yeah, for most of you, it will get you to sleep. But it's also numbing the message your body is attempting to convey. Can you answer the call and show up for yourself the way you show up for your friends and family? To put it differently, if you're not sleeping, you're not processing. If you were a computer, all this downloading with little or no processing would eventually lead to a crash with absolute certainty. Well, it's no different with you. If you're not sleeping, you're going to crash. It's not a matter of if, it is a matter of when. So, how can you access sleep? Again, one must move away from the mind and into the body. And there are many, many ways to do this. Some will utilize spiritual practice such as prayer, meditation, yin yoga, tai chi, qigong, grounding. Some of the things that I mentioned earlier about my hygiene, my sleep hygiene, are also spiritual practices. But at the end of the day, you have to find out what's right for you. What is the cocktail that you need to get back to your optimum health? And another thing, it's a good idea if you're struggling with sleep to avoid caffeine and stimulants altogether because because caffeine and stimulants have a half-life of 6 hours. That means if you drink a cup of coffee at 12, by 6 p.m., your body still has 50% of that caffeine and or stimulant actively in your central nervous system. 6 hours later, it still has half of it. And if you're trying to be in bed by 10, if you do the math, that doesn't give you enough time to get all of the stimulants and caffeine out of your body before your bedtime. So, if you absolutely have to consume coffee, consider decaf. There's so many great, delicious choices. And if you're going to say to me, yes, but Lisa, I need the energy. Well, then I would turn around and say to you, listen to last week's episode. You're obviously eating foods that are nutritionally dead because your food is your fuel, not your caffeine and your stimulants. And if you think that stimulants don't have any effect on you, I invite you to try the paper test. The paper test goes as follows. Prior to consuming any caffeine or stimulants, or sugar, right? Because sugar is a stimulant. It's also a drug, but neither here nor there. You take a piece of paper, you place it onto the palm of your hand. You stretch your hand out so it moves away from your body. So you have an outstretched hand, palm facing up with a piece of paper. This is before you've consumed stimulants. That piece of paper is probably pretty still. Not a lot of shaking going, if any. Do the same exact test after you've consumed caffeine. Within about 30 minutes of having consumed the caffeine, if you repeat the same test, what you notice is the paper is shaking because your hand is shaking. So even if you think you're not getting anything out of your coffee and it's not really doing anything for you, I assure you your central nervous system has a very different story. Or vantage point, we'll say. Also avoiding heavy meals, simple refined carbs such as pasta grains, rice, late in the day, not ideal. Because these are rapidly digested foods and they spike your sugar levels, giving you energy to expend. But what do you need to expend when you're getting ready to be still and resting? And also, I want to caution you about having fruits right before bed because, unfortunately, most fruits today, and especially in the West, tend to be hybridized for taste and size. So this leads to sugar cravings because the fruits themselves, they're nutrient deficient. So eating sweet fruit or juice at night actually makes it more difficult for you to access sleep because it's giving you sugar, you're then craving more sugar, and you're doing the exact opposite of shutting down and going into a still, quiet place. More favorable options at night would be things like legumes, nuts, avocado, and other healthy fats like avocados, healthy fats like nut butters, seed butters, really quality protein. That would be a more optimal choice, I would say, than partaking in an evening snack. And if you're going to partake in like the nut butters or the avocado, I say keep it simple. You just have half an avocado with a little bit of sea salt, maybe a little bit of lime juice, a spoon of a nut butter or a seed butter, but not an actual meal. Like I said, avoid the carbs, so no bread needs to be added. A spoonful of cashew butter or almond butter will go a long way if your stomach is growling a bit just prior to bed. And it will satiate you, whilst curbing your sweet tooth. Because, again, if we go back to last week's episode, my recommendation was that you try flipping the narrative where your most succulent, delicious, beautiful meal of the day is at dinner time. Flip that and have it during your breakfast instead so that you're tapering off as the day goes on. Because you need your calories when you need fuel, right? So why would you need a huge meal at nighttime if you're about to go to bed? What would you need that fuel for? It doesn't really make sense, right? So to me, it's about bringing sense back into the things that we do versus just listening to what we've been told and conditioned by society. Because just because it's normal, it doesn't mean that it's good for you. Other options that you might contend with or consider at night would be a sea moss beverage, a smoothie. A smoothie with sea moss or a hot sea moss beverage. Because now you're getting something that's nutritionally dense, and that also tells your body it's going into repair mode. That's what sea moss does. Just don't avoid good, healthy, fatty foods. I honestly believe a lot of people are not at their optimum health today because they're not consuming enough healthy fats. And healthy fats are essential to cell membranes and cell formation. In fact, fat is a concentrated form of energy and it supports and builds healthy hormones. So I know it's a lot I've just thrown at you. So just listen to this podcast again. If you're unsure or you thought it was too much, just listen to it again. Listen to it a third time and a fourth time. And then reach out. Like I said, because I would love to make this a conversation. Before I move away from options for you to have at nighttime, I also want to say chamomile tea is a nice option as well. But again, you would want to have this beverage, chamomile tea or sea moss or your sea moss smoothie, at least 2 hours prior to going to bed. At the very least. Give yourself at least 2 hours where you're not consuming anything before you go to bed. You'd be doing yourself a huge favor. So why don't I give you guys my cute little sea moss beverage for nighttime? So this is what I like to do at night, okay? I like to get a high quality nut milk if I'm unable to make my own, although I prefer to make my own. But if I don't have the time, I will have some nut milk always at the house that's really clean. Find a brand that suits you with just 2 ingredients, water and the nut. Okay, whatever nut you've chosen. Could be walnuts, could be almonds, could be macadamia nuts, could be hazelnuts. But the point is it should just have 2 ingredients. It certainly shouldn't have any sugar, any gums, anything else. Warm that on a pot, because if you're serious about going down this holistic lifestyle journey with me, I can tell you right now, you might as well unplug your microwave. You will not be reheating or cooking, and I use that term loosely, with a microwave. So in a saucepan, on your stovetop, some clean nut milk. I season it with a little bit of nutmeg and cinnamon because I'm personally trying to reduce the amount of sugar intake. But you have the option of adding an alkaline sweetener like an agave or a coconut sugar or a date sugar if you like. Then all you need for about an 8-ounce cup is really like 1/8 of a teaspoon of sea moss. It doesn't take a lot, and yet it's packed with 92 minerals. So just whisk that in there until it dissolves, and then voila, there's your beverage. Wrap your arms around this mug and just sit back and sip. Enjoy whilst listening to this podcast or some binaural beats. Anyways, the point is, structure a nighttime ritual, also referred to as sleep hygiene, a set of practices that signal to your body and its central nervous system that it is time to turn down. There will be no turn-up activities in the hours leading up to your sleep if you're serious about your sleep, unless it's sex. Sexual activity, especially when between 2 individuals who are expressing love to each other, is not only healing to the body, it's a terrific stress reliever. That kind of release at bedtime can certainly help quiet the mind and the body. Just something for you to think about. The important thing is whatever you choose to do, stay consistent, especially whilst building new pathways in the brains, creating new patterns and conditioning. This requires repetitiveness and consistency. Make use of this unprecedented time that we have to be at home and commit to a routine that you can maintain. You are a divine soul, and you chose to have this earthly experience. The same way that you came from nature, you will return to her. And all that time in between, you stay connected to her, whether you know it or not. So the body already knows when it's morning, afternoon, or night, winter, spring, summer, or fall. It doesn't need an app or a calendar. It just needs the mind to act as an ally and not a saboteur. Work with your mind to plan, to practice, and to perform in a way that helps you to go to bed early or on time, and watch how your life changes and improves. The health of your consciousness is related to your consciousness of health. Get conscious and get healthy now. You have many, many tools available to you, not just from this podcast, but I'm sure from many others and YouTube channels and bloggers. Pick what's right for you. Make a choice. Commit to it and carry it out. All right. That brings us to the end of the Yin Foundational Principles as taught by the Czech Institute. Next week, we begin to look at the Yang Foundational Principles. And first up is thoughts. Do you have any questions? I'm sure you do. Send them to me at AlkaliYogi@yahoo.com, spelled AlkaliYogi@yahoo.com, or find me online, all socials, AlkaliYogi. Signing off for now, everyone. Thank you, family and friends, for being here with me. I appreciate you all. Be well and stay well. Until next time.